Welcome to More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. This is a podcast that highlights the amazing acts of service that lawyers perform all over the country. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinkscrow.com. Now here's the host of More Than a Lawyer, Christy Crow.
Welcome back to More Than a Lawyer. I'm so excited today to have Chris Pracht with us on More Than a Lawyer. Chris is a great example of what it means to be more than a lawyer. So you are going to love getting to know him and learning more about what he does in his community in South Carolina. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Christy, thank you so much. We got a Chris and Christy combo going on here. So
Exactly. It'll be easy for us to remember each other's names.
Yes, but I am flattered that you asked me to come on here, and I'm really excited about talking, about what it is to be more than a lawyer, something I'm passionate about.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. Before we start talking about what it means to be more than a lawyer, I wanted to learn more about what you do as a lawyer. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your practice and what you do there in South Carolina?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in South Carolina. I was born in a little town called Anderson, South Carolina, and that's where our home office is. We have several offices across the state of South Carolina, but our home and where our primary office is in Anderson. We're a personal injury law firm. We have 6 lawyers, about 23 staff, and we handle. Right now, we probably have about 600-700 cases total, including a lot of screens and just cases we're evaluating. But we love helping people that are facing a tough time from an injury, an accident. We handle all kind of cases. My real passion has been wrongful death cases. It's something that I've had the most experience in. Probably the best results as a lawyer have been in cases involving wrongful death. We pride ourselves on being a community-focused and community-driven law firm, which I look forward to talking to you about today. But yeah, we love helping folks, man, and that's kind of our attitude is clients first and everything second.
Well, when you put your clients first, everything else always does fall into place. I know that from my own experience. So I'm glad that you recognize that as well. Well, with that big of a practice and representing hundreds of people across the state, how do you find time, or how did you start making time to volunteer in your community while managing your practice?
Sure. It's funny. I have to answer that question, Christy. I have to go back a little bit because my law firm's grown very quickly in the last 3 years, right? So, in 2015, when I really kind of was developing my law practice, I was always involved in the community. And I think that goes back to a little bit of my upbringing. I come from a family of public service. My granddad was a congressman. My mom was in politics. She ran for office. And so from a very early age, it was always about public service. And that's a kind of a pillar of who you are as a citizen, right? And so from very early in my legal career, I always was on, a board or, volunteering my time because it was just kind of part of what you do, right? I mean, if you're going to be a part of a community, be a part of a community. And so it was just really something that came very naturally to me. And so as the business grew, I found that the challenge was having to be very intentional about the time you dedicate to your charity because it was getting pushed aside for a while, frankly, as the business grew. And I really kind of had a reset and said, why are we here? And since we did that reset, we really rededicated ourselves to, and this is probably in 2017, 18, to being a law firm that really gives back to the community.
Well, that's what when you start working on the firm and evaluating your culture, one of the things I always say is find your why. And so when you were looking for your why for your firm, as you were redeveloping it and refocusing it, what was your why?
Yeah. So I felt like it's interesting, kind of the vision of our firm, or what we kind of try to provide as a unique value proposition, right? Is we handle all kind of cases. Like I found that there are these amazing trial lawyers I work with, but boy, if you don't have $1 million case, like they're not your lawyer, right? Because they're great and they've earned that success. But I wanted to have a law firm that if you had a catastrophic case, sure, we got your back. We're capable. We're equipped to do it. But at the same time, if you've got a case that's maybe just to put a number on a 20 or 30 or $40,000 case, like, you need a lawyer too. And so that kind of intertwines with being a community law firm, right? Is we're here for everyone, and in giving back in a charitable way and serving on boards and things of that nature, it just blends so well with that vision of who we are. Like you said, the why, right? We do it, well, of course, to make a living, but we do it to make our community better too, so we can be proud of how we make a living.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to look at developing your firm and developing the culture of your firm, because I know it starts with the leader, and it starts with you at your law firm there in South Carolina. How do you balance your legal career and your responsibilities for your cases with the time you have to spend with your volunteer commitments?
Carefully, right? As best you can. It gets crazy. I mean, this year, and I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, but one of my favorite charities is Anderson Interfaith Ministries, and we do this thing where, we every Christmas they have a big food drive, and we give away gift cards to everybody as they pick up their food. I came running into that thing on two wheels, late, and just come from a deposition. We had a leadership meeting afterwards, and so I had like 2 hours of time that we had dedicated to that, and it was just, you just have to be intentional about it. You said, how do you make the time? You have to plan. You have to think about it. Hey, we've got a million things going on, but we've got to make this a priority, just as much as preparing for a deposition, or just as much as working on your marketing for your firm. You just put all those on the same priority and say, we're gonna make time. And so it's just planning.
Well, speaking of Anderson Interfaith Ministries,
AIM
is one of the charities that you seem to be very passionate about. When I was thinking about asking you to be on the show, I looked you up and saw that you were very actively involved with that on the board. Tell us about AIM and what made you decide to get interested in that particular charity.
Sure. So, AIM's something I've been involved with at some level in Anderson all my life. So, I mean, I've known about them, been familiar with the charity, gone to different events they do. And I just love what they do, because they really service a part of our community that you don't really see. And I didn't see until I got into practicing law. And so I guess to answer your question of how I got involved with them, when I got out of law school and started my own practice, I realized how freaking sheltered I'd been my whole life, and how fortunate I was in the way I was raised, and the challenges that I frankly didn't have, that a lot of folks do have. And so as a lawyer, and when I first started out, Christy, I did everything, right? I mean, criminal,
Threshold lawyer.
Right. And so you have people coming to you with all of these crazy stories, right, about their lives and these challenges. And it introduced me to a part of our community that's a huge percentage of the people, but that you don't see unless you pay attention. And so when I realized that AIM was servicing that community and helping that community that really had, a group of people facing a lot of challenges, I became passionate about it. So that's how I got the connection with them, was just really seeing the need and really kind of finally putting two and two in my head. It's like, this is really what they do. And that was just something I wanted to be a part of.
So what does AIM do? I know you said generally it helps people in the community, but tell us kind of more specifically what they do in your community. And if somebody wants to start an interfaith ministry in their own community, what kind of projects should they think about doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So AIM, first and foremost, I think that I consider them a shelter and a food bank, right? They obviously are need-based. It is of, accepting of people of all faiths, all backgrounds, and it's the interfaith ministries portion of it. And it's really just looking for people that are in need, giving them food, shelter, medical attention, pointing them in the right direction to other resources that they need. And really just giving them that base level of care to make sure that nobody completely falls through the cracks. Now, it's not, like all charities, they're limited in what they can do because of resources, and they're a largely volunteer operation, right? So it can be tough, but AIM does a great job of what they have. And so those are the two big things they do, I think, are food drives, a food bank, and shelter.
Those sound like year-round activities. Are there a couple of things that y'all do, like the Christmas activity that you do
Yeah.
once a year that are the big drives during the year?
Yeah, so that's the best. That's my favorite one. But we interact with them throughout the year. They usually do 3 or 4 events a year, which we're always on board with. The big one that we do that I love is really kind of, and I'll go back and say, so the way this started is Ames said, hey, we've got an idea. We'd love for you to give away something. You decide what, along with our Christmas food boxes they give out. And so the way it works is, and I'd never done this, I'd never seen this. So you go over there and they've got a line of cars that line up, and literally they started this, I think, during COVID, and it goes around the block. And folks come up, they have a ticket because they're pre-approved, need based, and then they get their food. And so I just started going up and handed a $50 gift card to each one of them, and it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I've never thought giving away money would be, you would get so much out of it. But these people, it was Christmas, they were clearly struggling, and it was just like that little bit of money just lit them up, because you could see that they, well, maybe I can do this now, or maybe I can buy this for my son, or maybe pay the power bill and have heat on Christmas, something. And I don't know, man, it was just powerful to me to see how just a little bit of time and effort can make a big difference.
That's awesome. So how many $50 gift cards did you give away that first Christmas?
We gave away until the cars stopped coming. We ran out, and I literally ended up giving cash to the people. So I was like, I'm not going to have somebody wait in a line, and we didn't have enough gift cards for the last 10 cars. But we gave away a lot. I mean, it ended up being, 100 cars or so.
Oh, wow. And
really,
you think, that's a lot of money, and that was a big investment for your firm, but you do think about how many lives you affected with that and how moving that is for everyone that participated on both sides, both the giver and the receiver.
no doubt. And it was just, I don't know. Just like I said, I got a lot more than I gave. I put it to you that way. It's just the way I felt about it.
Amen. Well, when you look at volunteer boards in your community and my community and across the country, you often see lawyers involved with nonprofits. Do you believe that having some kind of legal expertise is what draws people to lawyers to serve on nonprofit boards? Or do you think it's more of our personalities and drive to serve?
I would say the latter. I think it's more of our personalities. I mean, I don't know. Sure, the legal expertise may play a role in it, but we were talking about this on the phone the other day. I have this belief that we as attorneys get a real bad rap, man. I mean, we get this idea or this image out there that we're these just blood-sucking people with no emotion, and it's all, cutthroat. But my experience, just as a citizen of Anderson County, South Carolina, has been that lawyers have been on the forefront of everything. I mean, the way I met my long-term law partner was we were both serving on the board of the Anderson Free Clinic, which is an organization that gives away free medical care if folks can't afford it. And that was an amazing experience. And I think there were 3 or 4 lawyers on that board. And every board I've ever been on, whether it was on a Clements Kindness Cancer Board, AIM, the library, there's been lawyers on every one. And they all do it because they care about people. Nobody makes any money off this. It's charitable. And I don't think they do it because they want to tout their legal expertise. We get to do that in our daily work enough, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's because they care and they understand the idea of civic duty.
Well, you've touched on this, but I want you to share this story because it seems so powerful in your own career path. Is that you said you met your now law partner when you were volunteering? Tell us that story and how did that come about?
Right. So she was my law partner for 10 years, and she just retired last year. But in 2013, Nancy Jo Thomason, who had her own practice here in Anderson, and I had my own practice, and she did almost exclusively family law. And I had, like I told you, started kind of doing everything and had merged towards personal injury work and really had this horrible disdain for family law, but I had all these family law cases. And so we were on the free clinic board together, and, we of course knew each other professionally, but we really just became friends, right? Through our service. And finally, we just looked at each other after a meeting. It was really walking out of a board meeting. We looked at each other and I said, I just hate family law. I just hate it. I don't ever want to do another one. I'm not good at it. It's just, this is not me. And she said, well, I hate personal injury. And I think it's, it's not for me. And so that was kind of what started it. And we had a great 10-year partnership that, was allowed me to do the things to build the business I want. But it all started because of our, service on the free clinic board. But for that, I don't know. You could argue my career would have taken a very different path.
Well, we all have experiences that can change the path of our careers and our lives. And I know that was one that was very powerful for you. If someone's listening to this and wondering how they could get involved in their community or in a service project in their community, what advice would you give to them?
That's a great question, because there's a lot out there, right? There's a lot of charities out there and a lot of good causes. I think you got to find your passion first, and then follow that, right? Like, so what do you really care about? For me, like I kind of told you, I was experiencing the challenges some of my clients were having early on, and it kind of led me to AIM, right? But I've got other, charities that I'm really starting to get involved with right now. My middle child is autistic, and so I've become, very passionate about those issues. And that's a whole nother area of need out there, right? And there's so many good causes out there, whether it's, talking about cancer research. One thing we're looking at doing right now is starting a nonprofit on that's going to be designed, hopefully, to lobby the legislature for tougher laws on distracted driving, texting and driving. And that came out of me sitting across the table from, and you've probably done this too, from mothers and sons and brothers and sisters, and saying, yeah, I know that they were distracted, and I know that they ran the red light and killed your mom or your brother or your God forbid your child, but they got a ticket, and that's all they're going to get. And there's no other accountability really through the criminal justice system than that. That's a tough conversation to have. And so we wanted to be more involved in that. So just find your passion and go. Would be my advice.
Well, after someone finds their passion, one of the other things that I've seen that I know I encourage people to do is get involved. Don't just join a board and attend one meeting every 2 or 3 board meetings, but definitely, if it's something you're passionate about, show your passion by being involved and really dedicating the time, because anyone can get put on a board, but if you're not going to be active on it, don't do it, and save that board seat or that volunteer position for someone that is going to be active.
That is a great piece of advice. Don't mail it in. Just don't, because you're right. That's an open seat for somebody who may be real passionate about it and put in the work too, and I couldn't agree more. Because, if you do that, you really can see the difference you make, right? You can see a manifest, oh, wow, I've put in the time, and look at where this organization is now, as opposed to where it was.
Yeah. Well, lastly, this being the More Than a Lawyer podcast, what does being more than a lawyer mean to you?
Man, that is I thought about that question, because there's a lot of ways you could go with it. But I think that traditionally, right, our profession has always been more about being more than just a lawyer, right? I kind of corny, but I go back to Abraham Lincoln, and I think of him all the time. He's a great historical figure, and his days and years practicing law, he's just an amazing community leader, right? And that's what lawyers are meant to be, because we hold a special trust as like officers of the court, right? To make sure that the spirit of the law and the letter of the law is carried out throughout our community. And that means justice for everybody in some sense, right? And where we see a need, where we see injustice, that's where we have to step up. And that to me is being more than a lawyer within just your practice, but doing that for the entire community, regardless of whether there's a pecuniary benefit to you or not.
I agree 100%, Chris. And thank you so much for joining us on More Than a Lawyer today and sharing your experiences there in Anderson and across South Carolina. And we look forward to hearing more about what you're doing in your community and sharing more stories in the future. So join us next time for More Than a Lawyer.
so much.
You've been tuning into More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinkscrow.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.